In today's video, we'll go over how to change keybinds. So when I press G on my keyboard, we get this keybinds menu here. And with that, we can change our keybinds. So for example, settings, we have G, G works. We can change it to N. Now, if I press G, it doesn't work anymore. I have to use N. Same for jump. So we have space, works right now. Change it to K, close this down, space doesn't work. We have to use K. So with that said, let's begin. So to start things off, we'll go ahead and open up our third person folder, blueprints, third person character. Now inside here on our input mapping, we want to do a few things. So let's just close this down, move it to the side. And from the enhanced input local player subsystem, we want to get the enhanced input user settings. With that, we want to check if our mapping context is registered. So we'll do is mapping context registered. And you want to add the same one here. So that one, B left mouse for a branch. And if it's not true, we will then go ahead and register it. So register input mapping context, like so. And again, this goes on false, not true, and select your IMC default. Double click to align the lines, make it a little bit more pretty. Once done, whoops, we could steal this, bring it back as if nothing ever happened. There we go. And we'll put it back in place. Looks good. So let's compile and save. Next, we want to go ahead and open up the project settings. So top right, settings, project settings. And we want to search for enhanced. And in here, if we scroll down, we should see user settings, enable user settings experimental. Take this to be true. Otherwise, you won't be able to actually do your keybinds. Next, inside our third person blueprints folder, we want to right click and create a blueprint class. And this will be our player controller. So BP PC main or blueprint player controller main. Now, once we create a player controller, it's a good idea to go ahead and assign it to our game. So if we go to world settings, if you don't see this, go to settings, world settings. On your game mode override, click on the dropdown, player controller class, select your own player controller. Once that's done, let's open up our content folder, right click and create a new one called UI. Now in here, we want to create a user interface, widget blueprint. And this is for a temporary purpose. We'll do WB for widget blueprint underscore keybinds menu. Save it. It just needs to exist for us. And back inside the content, third person, blueprints, PC main. So in here, what we want to do is, before we actually create any logic inside, we need an input. So if we go to third person, inputs, we have actions, and we can right click to create a new input action called IA underscore, for example, toggle menu, toggle pause, whatever you like. Now with that, we need to assign it a key. So if you go back to IMC default, if you create a new mapping, we have our toggle menu and we can assign a key of our choice. So I'll do G. Now, when we're changing our keybinds later down the line, what we want to do is we actually want to click on the drop down further and the settings behavior, go in here and do override settings. And the setting behavior, the player mappable key settings is going to be the experimental one. And this should give us another drop down for the name of the key. So this would be like a unique name. So let's do, since this is toggle pause menu, we'll do pause underscore 01. The display name is going to be pause, and the display category and so on doesn't really matter for us at the moment. So you want to do the exact same process with every keybind you want. So in our move, we have 4 keybinds. We have W, S, A, and D. So you have to go to each and every one of them and do inherit settings, override, mappable key settings, click on your drop down, fill this in. So move would be, I guess, forward underscore 01. And then our name will just say move forward or whatever you like. Forward also works. Maybe it's simpler. And with that, we'll then go to S. We'll do the exact same thing. And you get the idea. You just want to fill these out. So for S, which is backward, we'll do backward underscore 01. That's the unique name. And display will be backward. So go ahead and do this for all of your keybinds. With that done, let's go ahead and open up our player controller. Now inside here, we want to create 3 functions. First being toggle pause menu or whatever you like, toggle menu, we can call it. And then we have our show mouse and our hide mouse. So on toggle menu, double click that, we'll do create widget. And the widget we want is our keybinds menu. Now next, we want to go ahead and promote this to a variable, WB, let's see, keybinds menu. And afterwards, we'll do add to viewport, like so. Now, before all of this is created, we want to check if this reference already exists. So we'll drag it out to a get, right click, convert to a validated get. And with that, if it does exist, we'll remove it from the parent, so from our screens. And then we want to clear that reference at the end. So Control-C, Control-V, your set variable, and it's going to be set to empty. Otherwise, you'll just always, it'll always exist and it'll try to remove it from your screen every single time. Once that's done, we need our mouse on the screen. So when we hide it or destroy it, we want to hide the mouse. And when we create it, we want to show the mouse on our screens. From here, we then want to create some logic in both of these. So show mouse first, right click, get player controller, and do a set show mouse cursor to be true. And at the very end, we'll do set input game and UI, and simply game and UI allows you to move while being in the menu. Next, for our hide mouse, we'll do the same. So right click, get player controller, and we'll do set show mouse cursor to be false. And before we do that, we want to do is valid, because when we close the game, this won't be valid, so we'll get an error. So we'll do that to avoid that. And then we want to do a set input game only. So we're putting it back. And like so, we're done. Double click, select all, press Q to align. Now the only thing left is to call our toggle menu function. So we can close this down, and in the event graph, since we made an input for ourselves called pause menu, I think, so IA toggle menu. And on the dropdown, on started, we want to call our toggle menu function. So toggle menu. And now if we play the game, compile and save, we should be able to see our mouse on the screen. So move around, press G, hit the mouse, press G again, it gets hidden. Next, let's go ahead and open up the UI folder. Inside, we want to right click to create a new widget. And we'll call it WB underscore key slot. Let's open that up. Inside here, we want to grab a horizontal box, like so. And to see this better, we want to go to full screen on the top right and change it to custom on screen. And let's just change the width to 100 or 900. Now we see a better representation of what we'll have. So with the horizontal box, we want to add a button. And the reason for that is it'll make our alignment a little bit easier. So we want 2 of these, one for the text and one for the actual key slot. So both can be empty. We don't need anything to be seen there. Right. So with that, click on your first button. We'll just call it button. It doesn't really matter. Doesn't have to be variable, actually. Button 2 is important. We'll just call it keybind. We then want some text on our first button, and we'll just make it variable so we can change it. And we'll do txt underscore key name. So in this area, we'll just assign which key goes where. So you might have move forward, then move backward, and so on. On the second button, we'll go ahead and grab a input key selector. And this will actually allow us to change the key. Now in here, this looks a bit weird. So if you go to style, you have normal, hover, and pressed. We can just set all of these to be 0. 0, normal, hovered will do 0. And then pressed will also do 0. Now the text itself, you can change it to a different color if you want. So we could go white, covered, we could do white, and like so. So play around with this however you like. But once that's done, let's also give this a name. So I'll do IKS underscore 01 input key selector. One more thing we could do is let's click on our button keybind, and on the actual style, we can make it a little bit darker. So it represents like a selection. Something like that works. That looks nice. So let's compile and save. Let's go ahead and open up our graph. From here, we want to go ahead and click on functions and create some functions. First, we'll do update key slot. In here, we want to create two inputs. We want one for the key. So this would be a key like so. And then we want another one called the input key selector. So input, let's do input. And for the name, we'll do input key selector, object reference. With that, we'll go ahead, drag from input and do set selected key, whatever this key is. Oh, before we do that, we need to actually make let's see, input chord, drag that in and connect these. And if you don't like the dropdown, we can hide unconnected pins. And let's compile and save. Next, we want to update the name of our slot. So we'll create a new function called update slot name. And here we want to grab our text key name, set text, and promote this to a variable. Call it something like our slot name or display name. And that's the keybind that's supposed to go in this key slot. Like so. And let's compile and save. Next, we'll go ahead and create a function called refresh key slot. In here, we want to click on our function and create two inputs. One for a key mapping. So let's search for key mapping, player key mapping to be exact. And for the name, we'll do key mapping. Next, we want user settings. So we'll do user settings. And in here, we'll type in user settings, and we want the enhanced input user settings. So once we have that, we can go ahead and promote this to a variable user settings, like so. And for the key mapping, we can also promote that to a variable called key mapping. So there we go. And we can break that open and get the current key. So we can update key slot with our current key. And for the input, it's our input key selector. So drag it in, plug it in, hide then everything by clicking hide unconnected pins. And at the very end, we want to update the slot name. And like so, we can compile and save. Next, we need a way to set our new key. So for that, we'll create a function called set new key. And in here, we want to click on this function and create a new input for a input chord. And this is going to be a type input chord. So search for one, there we go. We can break that open and we want to check if is keyboard. So whatever key we are pressing, we just want to make sure if it's a keyboard key. You don't want your controller to be able to set your keyboard keys, for example. Next, we want a branch and we want to check if we have pressed this slot. So condition variable, something like is selection changed. If true, we want to then set it to be empty. So this goes to a branch and our key can be promoted to a variable called new key mapping. Like so. And with that, we can also hide the unconnected pins. Grab our user settings and we want to do three things. We want to map the player key. We then want to apply the settings we did. And we want to then save our settings. So map first, apply, and save. Like so. And then in args for the map player key, we'll do a make. We can grab our mapping, a break, and we have everything we need. So mapping name to mapping name, slot to slot, and the new key is gonna come from the new key mapping. And there we go. Hopefully that's right. Missed anything. And once we're done, just align it nicely. And let's compile and save. Next, on your event graph, we can get rid of all of these guys. And we want to click on our IKS button, input key selector, on key selected, and on changed. So grab your changed key and we'll do is selection changed, set to true. And we can also play a sound to make it prettier, play sound to D. And on key selected, we can grab our set new key, connect it like so. And that's what's done in here. So let's compile and save. Next, we'll go ahead and edit our Keybinds menu. So let's open that up and we'll start by getting a canvas panel. Like so. With that, then we want to grab a border. And this border, we want to be centered on the screen. So go to anchors, hold Control Shift, and press the middle one. For size X, we'll do 1080 by 720 on the Y. The brush color, I'll leave 0. We'll do a minimalistic design here. So next, we want to be able to have a scroll box with all of our stuff inside. So drag it to your border. And we can do padding, let's say 0 for now. And inside the scroll box, we want all of our key slots. So let's search for key slot. There we go. Key slot, drag it in. And in here, there's a few things we have missed. So we need to go back to our key slot. And if we go to the graph, we want the display name to be instance editable so that we can change it per key. We also want one more thing called the slot name. Now this wants to be a name variable and also instance editable. Now this will match the exact name for the key in the IMC default, what's it called? Third person inputs. Yeah, so this will match the exact name for our keys. Well, that's the idea here. So if we go back to our Keybinds menu, because we made this variable, now we have this option to add something in here. So for the slot name, display name, for example, we might have move forward. Now this doesn't update because on here we want to do a event pre-construct. And we want to update the slot name as at the start. So let's compile and save. And with that, if we go to refresh slot, we don't actually have to call this at the very end. So let's compile and save, and we can close this for now. Back inside our Keybinds menu, now we have move forward updated. Let's compile and save. Let's do slot move forward. And we can grab this and paste it as many times as we have keys. So this would be move backward. You get the idea, and we just want to change this. And for the slot name, you want to make sure move forward would be move or forward underscore 01, the exact same name as we have. So for backward would be backward underscore 01. So go ahead and fill these out. Once you're done, you should be left with something looking like that. Now we can click on all of these keys and we can give them some spacing. So for example, 20, maybe too much, but I think that's fine. And at the very top, we want some text. So because our border can only have one child in here, what we want is we want to wrap our scroll box, maybe not so much. We want to add a text at the very top, but we need this to be wrapped with a vertical box. That way, if we drag our text into the vertical box, it appears here. So let's drag it all the way to the top, and it doesn't have to be a variable. We can say txt title and do keybinds. And center align it, give it some bigger size. So let's do 48. Can give some padding on the top. Bottom, let's do 50. And that looks pretty good to me. So once you're happy, compile and save. Next, we'll go ahead and open up the event graph. And in here, we want to create a new function called get all key slots. Now with this, we want to grab all of our key slots. I'll do them in order, backward, left, right. It doesn't really matter which order you do it in, and pause last. Here we'll do make array, and you just want to add as many slots as necessary. Then select both, press Q, select left side, right click, alignment left, and you get something like this. Promote this to a variable called key slots. And for this reference to exist, we need to call that function we just made on preconstruct. Now this stuff here will exist for us. So let's compile and save. Next, we'll go ahead and create a function called get all key binds. Now in here, we want to get the enhanced local player subsystem. And we want to get the enhanced input user settings. And if this is valid, we'll go ahead and then promote this to a variable called user settings. Once that's done, we'll get the current key profile. So that is our mappings, and we'll do get mapping rows. So all the keybinds and all the necessary, all the inputs and all the necessary keybinds with them. Here we want to get the values. And we want to do a for each loop. And we want to break that. And we get this structure thingy, and we'll do to array, like so. And from here, we'll do a for each loop with break. And we want to grab our key slots, which exist because we created them at the start, and we'll do a for each loop. And the idea here is that if this matches the keybind, you should add it to the slot. So what do we have? We had this slot name variable option. So do that. And here it's going to be called a mapping name. So let's do equals equals, connect both of them. Like so. And it will do a branch, connect that in here. And if that's the case, they match, then we'll do refresh in here, and do key mapping will be, let's see, the one here. Double click. And then of course you need the user settings, which comes from here. And that's fine. Should probably go ahead and rename that though. That's fine. File and save. One more thing to add is a reset button. So on the designer, we don't actually have anything in here. So if I go ahead, add a button on the vertical box at the bottom, we could be a little more generous with the box, or a little less generous with the padding. Let's do 15. And for our button, we can assign it left, give it text, and we'll say reset to text, doesn't matter, but the button itself does. Click on that, reset, and there we go. So we have this little button here. For the background color, we'll do 0. I don't want any of that. place you any or lower, and I'll just do padding on top and like 20. 20. So let's compile and save. Go to the event graph, click on button reset, and we'll do a new function called reset all key binds. So we want to get all key slots to a for each loop, like so. Promote to a local key slot, or local slot rather, and we'll get the key mapping, break it open, get the selector, no, get IKS, that's what we called it. And we want to update key slot to that. And this shall come from the default key, like so. And what else is left? Then we want to do the same as we were saving. So what was that? We'll do user settings. We want to map first, map player key, apply, double P, and we want to save. So map, apply, and then we have save. And there we go. So for here, what we'll do is we'll connect that here. Slot goes to slot, or this should say first, and we have new key. Let's close that down, and we can just connect the slot there as well. Hide all that, and we should be good to go. Compile and save, and let's call this on our button here. So one more thing to do actually is to get all keybinds function and add it to pre-construct, and let's compile and save and test this. Let's go ahead and hit play, and we should be able to open our menu, and all the key slots are there. So if we change pause to N, for example, press N, works. G doesn't work anymore. Spacebar to, let's see, H. Press space, doesn't work. H works. G doesn't work because it's on N, and so on. So all of that works. So this is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like, and as always, happy developing.